Love it. The investor world is huge. One thing is that we forget the opportunities that we have right here as a real estate agent. Don't forget, you go door knocking, you see some properties that are boarded up or something funky going on that's just that makes it look like, okay, this property is distressed. And you've got to remember that as a real estate agent, your hat isn't about just buying and selling, helping buyers and sellers. Your hat is also an investor. And we're going to talk about how you can think a little different. Don't think like, okay, I just got this one job to do and that's it. No, you have multiple jobs, guys. Multiple. All right, today I've got special guest Brad Berg here, and so awesome that he's here with us. I'm looking for your intro, your bio. I've got to find it real quick. Before I say anything else, Brad, I've got to find that bio because it's rock solid. So tell me, Brad, while I'm looking up your bio, where did you start out? What gave you your first push into real estate? And we're not talking sales or anything like that. What was your first push in real estate? Where'd you come from?
Yeah, so it's something that I had been intrigued with for a while, not unlike a lot of people. It's like, oh, I'd like to get in, I'd like to get in. And you kind of say that for a while until finally you just kind of, hey, you know what? Enough's enough. I need to just make a move. And once you do, you realize it's not as scary or difficult as you think. And from there, it just starts building. Um, you'll get to it if you find the bio. But so my background was
I
I went
got
to
it.
school for architecture.
Yeah,
Got
there you go.
a minor in construction management when I was there, and did the construction management deal for about 7 years. So it's building. It was more commercial industrial side than residential, but I always liked residential.
Hmm.
And so that's when I made the move to get a rental first. Got another one, but really wanted to get into the flipping, and started doing that. And then stopped doing work with the general contractor, got my license, went full-time real estate. Kind of stopped a little bit of the investing while I was getting going in real estate, which not necessarily the best thing, but I've been getting back into it, and it is where my passion is. I find a lot more enjoyment, and it's easier to go to work doing that stuff,
Yeah,
because I enjoy it.
yeah. And you're working for yourself a lot more too when you're doing your own stuff. You have a
Yeah,
more of a niche. It's more of a niche in real estate. The flipping investing world. When we're
yeah,
helping buyers and sellers, we're doing the norm. We're doing what all other realtors are doing out there. So you individualize yourself when you do a niche. And in this case, Brad's found a niche that he really enjoys to do over the typical buying and selling. Does he still do the buying and selling? Yeah, Brad's closed like three or four in the last month and a half, 2 months, something like that. He's had a bunch under contract. Some of them were his own though purchases. So you're still doing that, but you just have more of a niche.
yeah.
So
And
there we
there's
go.
a lot of overlap in real estate and investing, which is why it makes sense if you're doing real estate, why not venture over into some of the investing? Because there's opportunities whether you go full bore, like you're doing flips yourself, or you're doing what's more referred to as wholesaling, but there's opportunity there without changing what you're doing really as an agent, or what you should be doing as an agent.
So good.
And I will say, I find real estate sales more rewarding when you work with the right buyer, the right sellers. It's a very rewarding experience because it's definitely an industry of helping others. But it also is kind of nice for my personality, I'm more introverted. I like talking to the two by four and myself.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, so tell me about your bachelor's degree in architecture. Wow, and a minor in construction management. So I imagine that helps a lot in just being a real estate agent is having that knowledge.
Yeah, it's more kind of, I would consider it well-rounded as far as information about homes and kind of construction when it comes to repairs, maintenance, that kind of stuff. I used to do more repair, like request for repairs for agents. Um,
Mhm.
I don't do as much of that anymore. I'll help my clients with them with that. But I feel like a little bit better general knowledge, at least starting out,
Yeah.
right? Than the average agent. But it's something every agent should work towards, is knowing their product, right?
Whoa, so good. Understanding your product, understanding Your commodity. I did a Facebook or a YouTube live about this yesterday about understanding your commodity. If you're a farmer and you know tree fruit, and you were to take a piece of, if you didn't know it, then you were to fake it till you make it, then you show this certain tree fruit that you say, oh, this is a beautiful yellow flesh peach, but it's actually a white flesh. You look foolish to a typical farmer. But understanding your commodity and what you do, holy mackerel. I imagine these degrees you have, you've really dug into the nuts and bolts of real estate, of understanding the home, how it's built, how, what the, being that architecture background probably really enhances you over others, your expertise.
I think it's helped for sure.
Mm.
And like you're saying, just being able to talk with some credibility to your clients definitely goes a long way.
Hi,
They
everyone.
don't
This is
necessarily
Greg
expect you to know
Cashman here. I'm here
everything,
with Legacy Real Estate in Porterville, California.
Sorry, had to mute somebody.
but the more that you do know and can offer, the better they're going to appreciate you and recommend you to others.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, going out there, we talk about the importance of training every day and educating yourself every day and learning more, whether it's module series or books or whatever it is. Or in Brad's case, he's got that background of education through Cal Poly in San Luis. That's, whatever training you're choosing to do, you can never stop either. You got to keep going. It's going to continue to change. The way somebody builds a house, used to be this is the way. I mean, think back in the day, knob and tube electrical. That was the way to do it. Now, yeah, that's so crazy dangerous. You gotta have you gotta have all new updated panels and change things because the way we do things change. Same thing in real estate. The way we do things are going to continue to change. You got to keep educating yourself.
And it's
That's
funny
all
you
for
mentioned
sure.
that. We just had a knob and tube house up in Fresno. Had to change
Mm.
out the panel on that because it was still the very old style.
Wow. And so you go to pull your permits, and one of the first things they're going to do is start looking at some of your other items, right? And be
Yep.
like, oh yeah, yeah, I can get you the permit on that, but in order for me to give you that, I got to give you this. You've got to change this whole panel out. I bet you that happens.
Oh yeah, happens
Yeah.
often.
So tell me a little bit about your transition into the flipping world. We want a lot of people here want to know like how do you get started if you need, obviously you need money to get going. There's so many different ways to do it. Um, I always go back to when I started my company, California Properties LLC. I started by getting my first HELOC
Hmm.
and I used it. And these days, you don't want to really use all your money. You need to be able to have the money. So money leveraging is a real thing. So tell me about you. Like, how did you get started? How did you start putting the money together to be able to afford this outside investors? I mean, what are ways to put it together to get started?
Yeah. So whether you're starting out or you've done it forever, you still work the same avenue. It's networking. You gotta talk to people. You gotta meet people. In fact, it was Kevin Blaine. I sat down with my wife before I became an agent because we were doing investing, and talked to him, and he said, everybody knows somebody with money. That's the first place you go, and then obviously your own money is your cheapest because it doesn't cost you anything. Next is borrowing from yourself and borrowing from somebody that likes you, and then going to hard money because it gets more expensive the farther down that list you go. And it's about talking. What I mean, we always make it out to be worse in our heads than it actually is talking to somebody or asking for something. They tell you no, you move on to the next one, but they also might tell you yes, might want to partner with you. There's a lot of different options. The proverbial, there's more than one way to skin a cat. I mean, there's a lot of different options out there. Talking to lenders, talking to other agents, talking to people that have already been there and done that because everyone starts somewhere and learn to crawl before you can walk and run and all that. So a HELOC is a great opportunity if you have a house, you got equity in it, pull that out. You don't have to have the whole um, amount of money to do a flip. You just got to have a certain amount for maybe a down payment or whatever the loan requirements are going to be. And a lot of times when you get hard money, especially if it's hard money from a lender of some sort, they're only going to put the purchase price down. They're only doing the acquisition cost. So you have to come up with rehab on your own. Some do rehab, not very many. It is more expensive because obviously they're putting more risk out there on their own. So there's different rates and different ways that they structure that. But you just try and find what opportunities you have around you, just like your skill set, your background, your education. How can you use that to benefit you? Whatever it is, it doesn't matter. There's a way you can turn that to your benefit in what you're doing. And as far as knowing your product, to add on to that too, there's a lot of different things we have to know, right? Being a good agent doesn't mean you know the contract. It goes well beyond that. You need to know the contract, but you also should know neighborhoods and the house and generics about construction and building, the market, obviously, the trend of rates, the trends of pricing, stuff like that. So there's a lot of different avenues that we need to kind of be well rounded in, right?
Yeah, that's so good. So borrowing from yourself, that's the HELOC,
Yep.
or just regular equity line, So HELOCs are typically interest only payments. So short term, they're made for short term. They're not made for long term, right? You're not paying any principal on it. I've always had
It,
my
de- it
HELOC like that.
depends. Some HELOCs will require that. Depends on what institution you go through. Bank, credit unions
Mm,
tend to be a little bit better. Most will do HELOCs off of your primary. Some will do it off of investment properties if you have a rental. So you can still make that property, that money work for you, even when you haven't invested in something, which is something we've done. You put a little bit more into the property to get your mortgage below your rent to have some kind of clearance there, or at least enough money to pay for repairs and maintenance. But then you get a HELOC on it, and yeah, it's costing you, but your money's doing basically working twice for you, essentially, right? And hard money, you're 10, 12, 13% plus a point or two typically, which is 1 or 2% of what's being borrowed. Your HELOC is going to fluctuate most of the time with the market, but it's going to be right now, say 7 or 8%. Primary residence HELOCs are always going to be cheaper than investment. So maybe they're 6 or 7% right now. That's half the price of a hard money. So it definitely adds up. And borrowing money is a big part of doing investments. It's also a big part of the cost because that can add up quickly, depending on the amount you're borrowing and the length of the time you're borrowing it. So
mm.
getting a job done quickly is to your benefit too when you're borrowing it. And a big thing in the industry is other people's money, like you said, right? Use your money to do something else, buy a rental or invest in something else. Use somebody else's money to build up the cash to go invest somewhere else.
Hmm. Yeah, so
Hey,
good.
Sean, can I ask you a question for
Yes, please. Please.
so all the numbers that he was just saying, is there, would you be able to like maybe send not you, Sean, but is it Greg or
Oh, this is
Brad?
Brad,
Brad.
Brad
Brad.
Berg.
There's some sort of like quick sheet on averages of what you would ask, what an average person would loan interest rate wise. Like you said, other people's money, if it's just a cash borrow from a friend, I heard you say something about 10%. Is that like the norm? So if you were to ask, let's say 5%, would they like think you're insulting them type thing,
Yeah, so a lot of that comes down to the relationship, also, right? If it's gonna be hard money, and I don't mind, I can put something together that's rough. It's always going to vary a little bit, but you're talking 12 or 13% when it comes to hard money. So it's a stranger, it's a random company, it's a lender that you know. I know several lenders that
A lot of lenders, regular lenders do hard money. Yeah.
yeah,
I know one
because
here in Treasure Valley.
they know people, right? They've networked with people that have money and say, hey, I need to invest this stuff. So hey, I have opportunities. I got people that come to me and want hard money. So they have money that they're willing to lend out, usually 12, 13%, but they usually require points too. So if you're borrowing 100,000 at 2 points, that's 2,000 right off the top, plus the 12, 13% annually. So 1% a month, roughly. People borrowing from people, I mean, obviously they want to get what they can out of it, but if they like you enough, maybe you get a discounted rate for being a friend or something. And that is completely negotiable between you and that person, whether it's 5%, which is very low, or even 8 or 10%. That's still a benefit to you, and they make money. And I
Hmm.
do that. Like I'll do 10%. I have some family that they have a HELOC. It's like, hey, let's make this mutually beneficial, right? That's a big thing of mine too. Is it's got to be mutually beneficial with who you're partnering with. Everybody's got to get something out of it, right? To keep them coming back and keep everybody happy. And so you want to find that balance of where am I saving a little bit that maybe makes this job doable versus
Right.
kind of selling them short to where, well, it really wasn't worth my money being gone that long for just a little bit of return. So there's a balance there.
So I got a
Okay.
family member, I'm not going to say any names, that recently, and so you're always got to be thinking about this when you're talking real estate, because people are probably saying things that should be keying up to you to ask the question about, hey, would you be interested in investing that money? But a lot of realtors shut that off. And so I have this family member that brought it up recently and said, "Yeah, I got this money. We're thinking about just it's a equity line of credit we pulled out because we want to buy a property, our neighbor's property, when he sells it." And he said, our interest rate is like 8%. We've been paying like 2,500 bucks a month for this money just to sit in our account. He didn't do a HELOC. Where a HELOC is, it's like a credit card. You use it, you're going to get charged for it. Otherwise, leave it in there until you need to use it, and then you pull it out and use it. Well, his was a regular equity line of credit, so he just pulled it out, holding it, waiting at like, I think it's seven, no, 5 or 6% interest rate. So not bad. I mean, not horrible compared to today's, but right around five. And I said, hey, if you're interested in using some of that money, I could put it to work. I said, I'll pay you 12%, which means you're making 7% if you're at five. I said, so you're gonna make 7%. It's better than sitting in your savings right now. You're leaving it in your savings. You're probably getting 1% maybe return on it, but you're paying out five sitting in a savings account, unless it's a high equity or a what's it called? High yield savings account. Unless it's sitting in a high yield, you might be getting 3 to 4. But yeah, so if you want, basically I'll hold it for about 3 months and I'm going to pay you 12% as I'm holding it until the project's done. Then I'm going to pay it back, and then you just put it back in your account until, so at least it's, and right away he thought about it. And he's like, I'd be interested in talking more about that. You're coming across these fairly often in your career as a real estate agent. You just need to transition that brain, shift it to the investor side of things. And you could even be a middleman and broker some of that stuff in some situations. So where you're like, hey, yeah, no, I got somebody, and now you're wholesaling it over to someone else, and you're getting paid in the middle. So there's different things you can do. You're not a lender though, so you're not gonna, unless you're a lender, you got to be careful the way you do things. But
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of opportunities that you're coming across. That's good. I love it. Let's talk about some of your portfolio properties. What's the most craziest one you've seen lately? You've been doing a bunch in Central Valley, California. What have you come across? I know you and I did one last year that was,
Yeah, I think that one still holds the cake for the worst one I've purchased.
yeah. And by
Which,
the way, we made really good money on this flip. And all we did was a trash out.
yeah, a lot of people talk about wholesaling and not to get off topic, and it's kind of on topic, but a lot of people talk about reassignments, right? I'm personally not big on reassignments, just how I do things, but I'd rather do a wholesale where I buy it, clean it, so you can say you physically improve the property, improve the value, and then you sell it again. And that's basically what Sean and I did, where we bought the property. All we did was clean it up. And I mean, you could not walk from the front of the property to the back of the property. There's so much stuff on it. And I think we had 7 bins hauled off or something like that. Put it back on the market and did shockingly well on it, like better than I thought we would. And this house had holes in the ceiling, holes in the walls. They didn't even have all the drywall. Some of the siding
Roof was falling in. Roof
I
was
mean, it was very well ventilated.
Yes, very well ventilated.
And we still did well on it because we cleaned it up. You make
Yeah.
it look more appetizing to a prospective buyer. And a lot of times you do that to investors that want to fix it up. But this one, I think they were wanting it for themselves to fix up and live in.
Yeah, I think so.
It's not a loanable property, but
I'm
as long as
okay with
there's
saying the
cash.
numbers out loud, guys. We made almost 50 grand on that. We split it because that's one thing. You're talking about money and getting money. You can partner with other real estate agents who do flipping, who will partner with you 50-50. You find the property, you bring it. That's one of the reasons why Brad's on here today, because he is gonna give his hook to you in a minute. Here's his hook. I'm going to say it right now. If you are going through and you're door knocking and you see some sort of boarded up property, you need to change your script. Change your script to, yeah, I'm a real estate agent. You know, we're going to be listing so-and-so's property up the street, or we're doing an open house up the street, but we're also home buyers. We work with several investors and we're home buyers ourselves. If you know of anyone that's looking to sell in your neighborhood, we also give cash offers. If, and they're going to look across the street and they're going to go, well, what about that one? All boarded up. And you're going to go, well, I'm glad you asked because I was wanting to get a hold of the seller of that, but I don't have their contact information. Most neighbors know their neighbors. Do you happen to have that homeowner's phone number? I'd love to give them a call and give them an offer on their property. Yeah, sure. That's Joe. Here, I got it right here in my phone. They'll give it to you because they want that dang house cleaned up. So you come across these opportunities, you call Brad Berg, and Brad's going to say, or me or Brad, we both do it together. We're going to say, yeah, we're interested in that. We'll do it with you. We'll pay for the purchase. You split the price of the rehab and we'll do it together. You know, the percentages may change on how much you're going to get depending on how much money you have invested into it. But yeah, we'll do it with you instead of you kicking it over and giving it away to someone else, right, Brad?
Yep.
Do it,
Or
you'll do
ignoring
it
it
with
all together and then you make nothing.
exactly. Yeah, you might get a finder's fee. You might get to list it and you get, $3,000. I don't know, something like that. In this case, you're going to walk away with 10, 15, 20,000 maybe. So when you come across these properties, guys, don't pass them up. That's what you do. Don't pass them up.
Sean, could you talk about some of the things that are like good to flip? And I'm not talking about the house itself. I'm talking about what's in the house, like baseboards, flooring, cabinets. What's not profitable as far as is it just looks, as like LVP versus linoleum. You're just trying to make it look good, or you just, you know what I mean? What are the things that you stay away from?
So you're talking about like, what is it? So we don't stay away from anything. So burned houses, bring it on. We love burned houses. They're great.
No, I mean
So,
like in the house itself. If you're talking like say a house, it needs new carpet, new paint. What are things that you just that aren't profitable to invest in as far as adding more money into the
to
house?
put the money in there, what are the things that are going to make the house worth more money?
Correct.
Oh, got it. Good question. Brad,
Yeah.
go.
So on that, I don't often do much structural because then you start really getting into more costs. You do it right, you got permitting fees, inspections. Cosmetic is really where it's at if the structure integrity is still good. As far as what quality of flooring you put in, as long as it doesn't look super cheap, it's not going to matter. It's kind of personal preference there. My name is on the project, so I'm going to try and keep it to a certain level of quality because I don't want people coming back at me, oh, he does bad work or he sold me a cheap house. Everyone's got to answer that question for themselves, but the basics are, I mean, cosmetic paint is the easiest facelift you can do for anything. Flooring, I typically just go with a laminate flooring, $2 square foot or something like that. Nothing crazy. But you also got to know the neighborhood that you're selling it in, right? Is it
Right.
a nice neighborhood? You need to put a little bit nicer in there. You don't want to be the nicest house per se on the block, but you do want it to be one of the nicest. Kitchens, bathrooms obviously have a lot of resale. Knowing real estate, you're basically just transferring that knowledge over. You know, if kitchen's updated in a house, it's going to be worth more. So within reason, that's how I go about it. Interior, exterior paint, flooring, baseboards. You're doing flooring, you might as well do baseboards too. It really helps things pop. Granite, quartz countertops, something like that. And then basically condition of cabinets. Are they good enough? You can put modern hardware on it and it looks good. Or do you need to replace just the doors? Got a cabinet guy that will do just the doors to make it look good, but I don't have to remove the structure of the cabinets or reinstall any of that. It just depends. But those are the basics.
Yeah, usually we call a basic paint inside and out, flooring, kitchens and baths, right? You start putting roofs on there, you start doing ACs, those are all extra add-on costs. Those are the big ticket items that you usually look for. Foundation, does it need foundation work? you're now like he's talking, structural. Holy
Yeah.
mackerel, we're getting into some big things. So when we used to do this back in the day, and we would value a property for our previous owner. He was talking about Kevin Blaine. He was the one that kind of really got us all into flipping and got us into the real estate more than anything in general. Is when we would help with the valuing, we'd send an email. We'd say, "Hey, I got this flip. I got this one I'm potential work on. This is what I'm looking at," and we would call it real. This is the real, which means the real value, the real ultimate value. This is the value that I'm hoping to get out of it, but this is the real. And that's the value number after rehab value. And we call it ARV, after rehab value. And this is it. Brad's created some pretty cool calculators himself that he hoards really close. But they're amazing. And you plug in a few different little numbers and it kicks out, it actually will show the potential rehab value. It'll show the holding costs. It'll show all those important things that you need to think about. And all he's got to do is enter in a couple little numbers. So having a great calculator like that is going to help you big time. He enters in a couple numbers and it tells him whether he's in the red or he's in the black and what he needs to be offering. So having a really good calculator like that will make a big difference.
Sean, is he able to share that, or is that
He holds that
something we
thing
would
tight.
send
He's
to
like,
him?
you got to go get your own calculator.
That's what I was wondering.
Brad made this calculator. No, it's up to Brad if he wants to share it or not. But
I just was curious.
he made this app. Brad is he's a C. You guys hear me talk about disc God. He's a C. He's very analytical. He likes spreadsheets. Right,
Yeah.
Brad?
Yep, I'm a numbers guy, and so what I say a lot, because I run numbers and I try and pay attention to them. If the numbers work, they work, and I'm always down to run numbers on a project. It may be a pipe dream, or it's like, man, there's no way we can do that. Well, let's run numbers. You never know. It doesn't hurt to do that, and you might come across some that, you know what, I think we can make that work. And so that's what the spreadsheet does for me. Just keeps things organized, and it's much simpler to kind of know where I'm at. It accounts for all costs, because a lot of people will break things down very simply. You buy it for 100, you put 40 into it, and you made 60. No, not even close. Did you borrow the 100K? Okay, so you got costs on that. When you sell it, you're going to have 7-8% escrow commissions at the end of it. You got holding costs, you got supplemental property taxes that are coming back. So I try to account for as much of that. Now, with my background in construction, you always try and mitigate as much risk as you possibly can. If you eliminate all risk, you'll never get a job though. So you just try and do calculated risk as far as, okay, I think we can do this. I'm going to account for that. I mean, you don't just cross your fingers and hope nothing happens, because things will, but you got to try and do it properly so that you can still get the job and not lose on the back end. And that it's up to everybody too. What's your margin of risk versus reward? Depends on, for me, depends on how much work is going to be required and the purchase price, how much overall money you're going to have in a property. If you put $400,000 out there to make $5,000, no, thank you. I'll move on to something else, because you have an AC go out and that's $8,000. You just lost money. Like I don't cut things that tight. I don't chase jobs, because and I tell people this, like I'm real with them. I'm accountable to my family. I got to be disciplined to my numbers, and the seller has to be disciplined to theirs. I'm open and honest with them about that. I hope we can make it work. I want it to work, but I just try and be real with them on that. And I think it kind of softens them up a little bit. Okay, I get it. It makes sense.
Yeah.
The other thing was, when I buy properties, going back to something else you were saying, Sean, I don't typically do inspections. I do the inspection myself. I've seen enough that I get it. I know a lot of people will do a full home inspection, but basically all I want to know is the structure good? And you can tell if there's not major cracks settling on the house, the roof's not sagging down, stuff like that is really what I'm looking for, because it doesn't matter if it's a house that's in pristine condition, just old and outdated. That flooring that I put down in there is going to cost the same as the one that's all messed up and I have to rip out and put in new flooring. So those costs are going to be the same. It's when you get into the structure, foundation, roof, AC, stuff like that are going to be your big ticket items.
Yeah, I
If
was
that
trying to
makes
look for
sense.
pictures of that bad one we did a while back, and I can't find them for nothing. You probably have them somewhere, but I did come across one that I'm working on right now. And then just, the big thing is when you find these properties like Brad's talking about, you want to look at them, you want to get in there, look at them, make sure the foundation's good, make sure things are good, the most important big ticket items, and don't be afraid to write offers on these places. This one's one I picked up in Boise a while back, and I want to tell you that this was a wholesale. Someone wholesaled it to me. I'm not going to say the name of the person that wholesaled it. She might be on this call, um, because I'm going to tell you how much she made. She made 25 grand wholesaling it to me. Yeah, so wholesaling is a thing. Not everyone likes to do them. Reassignments, also called reassignments. But this is one that I got in Boise. I'm working on right now. Pretty rough. The cabinets were pretty bad. This is after it was stripped down pretty good. Contractors working on it. But this is the flooring we put in now. It's just a basic flooring, but it is an LPV. Here's the kitchen. We went with all new boxes from Lowe's, threw some quartz countertops in there. And yeah, new shower, new everything in there. Some of these properties. So basically what I worried about when I went in here was foundation was good. Kitchen, I knew needed a ton of work. I actually knew this exact model in Eagle. This one's in Boise. I knew the exact model in Eagle. So I was able to think, I already knew what the potential was that this property was going to look like when it was done. And I was excited because the one in Eagle was amazing. And it was exact same floor plan. So I know it was the same builder. But yeah, to be able to go in there and look at how I can completely change that and make it look totally different, that's what we're talking about doing, is just really fixing up the neighborhoods too at the same time. What can we do? I will say the worst one, I did lose money on one in my life, and it made my wife said I could never flip again. After that, we lost 10 grand. It was during the time, and remember some of the most important key things Brad talked about was holding costs, hiring contractors that are going to actually stick to their numbers. But we know that those will change a little bit depending on what they come across. You open up a wall, it's full of mold, things have to happen. So some things have to happen. Are they going to stay pretty close to their budget on cost? And are they going to be done in time? So back then, I hired a handyman to do a bunch of work. Can't really get away with that anymore, especially in California. You cannot have handyman do things. In Idaho, we can still have some handyman do some stuff. Um, but I hired a handyman. He was supposed to be done in 2 months. All I was doing was paint, carpet, and I decided to refinish the cabinets and throw on some new countertops, and I redid the roof too. It was supposed to be done in 2 months. It ended up taking 7 months with a handyman. My holding costs were so high. During that time, the interest rate went from 3.5%. This was in 2016, 17, somewhere around there. There was a weird thing that happened during that time. The interest rate went from 3.5% up to 5.5%.
Wow.
And it was November, December. A lot of you that were selling real estate during that market, you remember it. It was just a little blip where it went up and then it went right back down in the springtime. Well, that little blip completely screwed me up that I couldn't sell the property anymore. Nobody would offer on it. No, everybody froze. Kind of like what we dealt with in the last couple of years, right? A lot of people froze when the interest rate went up. I couldn't sell it, so I had all these holding costs. So I was going to rent it out, but then I decided to just sell it at a lower cost, and I ended up losing 10 grand. So you got to be really careful. I would have made 20, but because 2025, but because of 7 months of holding costs, those holding costs can be really expensive at that high of interest rate. And I used a private money lender, so I think I had about a 10% interest rate at the time on my loan, it wasn't hard money, it was just a private lender.
Sean,
Yeah.
you touched on something that I was going to ask you as far as handyman type stuff, because it's if you purchase the house, it's yours. Are you able to do any of the work yourself,
Oh,
or do
heck
you
yeah.
have to contract it?
Yeah,
Because
Brad's
I did like the cabinets and flooring and everything in my house when last year when I
You're
sold
gonna
it.
save so much more money if you can do a lot of that yourself. I mean, you'll be able to buy some properties that the other investors like myself won't be able to, because can I do the work? Yeah, I just don't have the time.
So,
I used to work, I've built houses from ground up, from before foundations I mean, I worked for a contractor right out of high school, and we built cabins, we built everything. I'm an electrical background. My dad's an electrician. I'm doing electrician since I was 12. I just don't have the time. But if
Yeah.
you can get in there and do it, yeah, Brad does some work himself. He gets in there so
That,
often.
that's a great question and something that I've done and kind of been through myself. One, you can save a lot of money for sure. And I have saved money before. And there's early on, there were deals like, hey, I need to do this so that I can actually make something on it versus make nothing and somebody else made money, right? But what I also learned on that is you're saving money, making money by saving money, doing the work yourself, but there's an opportunity cost to everything, right? You're spending all your time doing that. It's hard to do real estate because your time's already taken up. It's hard to find more deals because your time's taken up. And so there is an opportunity cost there because that's all you're able to do. And if you do take your time away from working on the house to attend to real estate or go find more deals, well, now that project's going to take longer. And if you're borrowing money, then so there's a balance there, right? But there's certain
Right.
things, maybe I'm really good at this, I can do this part of it. Like Sean, hey, if you wanted to go do electrical, you could save quite a bit of money doing electrical himself versus paying somebody to do that. But it's just a matter of what else you have going on. And I'd rather pay somebody else at this point to go do the work so that I can go find another one or manage multiple rather than just one.
It's
That
good.
makes sense.
Yeah, it's just like lead generating. Are you doing all your paperwork yourself, or are you leveraging that out so you can do more lead generation? Because you're worth a whole lot more money than doing all the paperwork yourself. You're worth a whole lot more money out there lead generating for more leads. Same thing with flipping. I'm going to talk about one more thing. We have about 15 minutes. I usually like to go 45 minutes to an hour, but there's an important thing to talk about, and that's door knocking. Brad and I have been kind of venturing out into the door knockers world, and we got a little momentum on it, but we kind of backed off, and I think that we lost a little opportunity there that we should pick that back up, Brad. But hiring door knockers and paying them, and when you buy the property, you can pay them out. You're not running it. You're not giving a commission. You're not doing anything like that. But say some young people that you hire go out and they find a flip and they start talking to the guy and saying, "Hey, yeah, no, we'll buy it. You hire these guys. You teach them how to value the properties like you and try to figure things out. You're the ultimate person to finish it in the end. You're not a realtor right now. Although you still you're still held under the ethics of a real estate agent when you're licensed. You still have to remember that. You always do. But when it comes to flipping houses and you're the buyer, you can actually pay somebody, a 1099 employee like a door knocker, to go out and find you some doors. And if you purchase the property and I buy the property off the market, I'm going to pay that person a percentage of whatever I want. I can pay him a flat rate, 2 grand. I can pay him 5 grand. If I'm going to make 15, 20, 30 grand off of it, I'll pay him 2 to 5 grand off of it if he finds the property. So putting together some door knockers, that's a big thing. You got to remember right now, if you're finding properties on the MLS, you're wasting your time. There might be, unless you're the one going to do all the work yourself, you might save enough money that flip might be not so skinny. But you got to find off the market properties. Brad, how you finding a lot of your flips? Real estate agents, right? Networking.
Mostly through networking. There's multiple ways, and honestly, using multiple ways is best. But door knocking is best because everything in real estate and investing, it's all relationship built, right? Having the face-to-face communication, showing you're a person, you got compassion, which I was going to talk on that deal that we did. We got the deal that we did together because Sean was able to talk to them as a human and found out things going on in their family, what they needed in order to make a deal at all on it. And that's why they went with us because we weren't just there trying to make money and buy a house. We were there as people. And not only that, but we did well enough on it that we actually gave money back to them afterwards, which they were, I mean, beyond
Oh man,
grateful for. A
what
lot
a
of
blessing.
medical issues,
Blessing.
bills, different stuff. And so we gave back because yes, it's a business. That's what we're doing. And I've talked to people about this, sellers. I'm not in the business of kicking people out on the street. I'm not in the business of taking advantage of people. What can we do to make this work for both? Mutually beneficial. I say it a lot. It's got to be that way.
So good. We
I
have
had
such
another
a
deal
lot
where it was a flyer that Sean had done, an old flyer, and these people hit me up, and the people that were living there were obviously getting kicked out, and I could hear screaming through the door. They're just gonna kick us out. Like she very angry. It was the granddaughter, the grandparents were the ones renting it. And so I go in and she slams the door and I start talking to them. We do our walkthrough with a contractor and I come back later, still more yelling. I talk to him, say, hey, I'm a person, right? I'm not in the business of kicking people out. I offered them money to help move within a certain time frame, trying to be compassionate towards them. And the granddaughter, who's older, she's not young, but comes out and she goes, "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to act like that." It changed the entire transaction for the rest of the deal. They moved out. They got money to help move. Uh, does it always work like that? Absolutely not. But that's why face to face is better than a random phone call, a random letter, which is kind of a dime a dozen these days. If you do those in conjunction with each other, now you're getting somewhere versus just one or the other. Because even having rentals, having my house, I get flyers all the time from people. Hey, I want to buy your house. Doesn't mean anything to me because I do it, but I get so many that if I send one to somebody else without following up on their doorstep, I'm just another piece of paper that they're throwing in the trash.
Yeah. One thing that that you said a second ago, I was going to bring up that. Oh, how many of you are getting these messages from random agents or investors that says, "Hey, you got any fixers right now? Don't forget about me." I get those all the time. A lot of times I reply back and say, "No, do you? If you do, I want one." And then they never respond anymore. That's not personable. They're trying to use their CRM and that might be working. I don't know if they are. I don't know anyone that's had really good success with that. But what Brad's talking about is I used to send out mailers. I used to send out about 3,000 mailers at a time. And then when I'd send those mailers out, they would come back and I would get phone call after phone call because there's so many people out there that own their house nearly outright that would, yeah, tell me how much you going to offer me for it. And one of the mailers that I gave Brad was 5 years old, 4 or 5 years old, something like that.
Yeah.
And I said, Brad, you want this one? You want to reach out to him? And he went out and met him face to face. And that face to face is huge. We have an awesome opportunity to really help people who are going through a difficult time in their life. They might be going through a divorce. They might have a death in the family. I'm working with Tony Larson. He helped me work one the other day that in Caldwell where it's a death in the family and they're his long SOI. First thing he did is reach out to me. And I said, yeah, I'll go over and look at it. Went over and looked at it, gave him an offer, got a verbal acceptance, but it's got to go through probate. So it could be a while. But that's where it's all about, that face-to-face relationships with agents and family members and anyone that might, contractors, they're in neighborhoods all the time. I always tell them, hey, your BNI groups, I'm in a BNI group. Hey, if you guys come across anything, keep me in mind, we'll put an offer on it. And these are opportunities that you have, these relationships. It's so important. Pick up a lot.
Definitely. And like you're saying earlier too, as far as the short sale stuff, I was going to mention it then. It is a business of service and help, right? Because you're saving them from losing out on something, losing the credit, losing a lot of negative stuff happens when you short sale and foreclose. And so, yes, it's a tough time. Yes, you're still trying to make money, but you're trying to, again, be mutually beneficial to both sides. So there
Yeah.
is a service that you're providing.
Yeah. Such an awesome opportunity. All right, guys, any last questions before we wrap it up with Brad? One thing we didn't really get into is a whole lot of the buy and holds. One, I found a really great one. I was going to do it with Brad. It was an SOI of mine in Tulare, California. Brad valued it. It was going to be skinny. So I told Brad, hey, just kick me over like as if I was going to make a commission on it and you just take it yourself. Brad ended up buying it as a hold. Some of these turn into great opportunities to keep. And so, buy and holds are huge. That's your long-term It's not your quick gonna make some quick money, but over time, yeah, you're building a portfolio. I helped a guy a while back who was ready to retire. And even though he's paying capital gains on every one of them, I helped him sell so many properties one at a time. I could have sold it as a portfolio, but he didn't want that. He just wanted to, he says, as my tenant moves out, I'm going to fix it up and then you're going to sell it. I probably sold 5 or 6 of his in Central California. He's retiring. Each one of them were paid off fully. He owned them outright. So he probably cashed out on about $3 or $4 million retirement.
And that's a key point too, as far as holds go, is they're not cash flow. That's not why you're buying them. You're buying them for long-term investment, retirement, something you make 200-300 bucks clear a month. That's not bad. It's not much money, but you save that in its own account for repairs and maintenance. And you keep in mind that your house is appreciating and they're paying down your mortgage. And that's what you're looking for down the road. So then the short-term investing, flipping, wholesaling is building up cash to do something else, whether it's stock market or buy something for yourself or buy long-term holds and use that for down the road. That's my kind of forced retirement is how I see it. Put the money into that and then let a property management take care of that. And hopefully I'll see that down the road.
During COVID, I had a fourplex I owned that I bought from an investor friend of mine. And during COVID, California was going to start letting everybody, pretty much did, let everybody, hey, you don't have to pay your payment if you don't want to. And I was like, I had a loan on that sucker. I couldn't let that happen. So I sold it, bought a place up in McCall, Idaho, made it an Airbnb. I've been losing money every single month on that place. But that fourplex, I'm kicking myself. I wish I would have kept that dang thing. So it's for long term. I stressed a little bit and said, let's just sell it and buy something else. Let's buy a little Airbnb. And anyway,
Yeah,
that's for sale if anyone wants it, fully furnished.
rentals
Sean,
are
do you mind if
not
I call you
for.
later today? Not about the McCall property because I don't have that money.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, you definitely give me a call. I am going to be jumping in an airplane in a bit. Tony Larson and I are actually going to fly over to Pocatello and go look at a flip property.
All right.
So we're going to fly over there and take a look at that in about an hour and a half. So if I don't answer, I'll call you right back.
All right.
Nice.
Give Tony a hug.
The fun stuff.
Have a good flight, man.
Love it, love it. Good times. By the way, Brad, you got to have big goals, guys. You have big goals. Brad had I got my license a while back, 2013-ish, and Brad and I love flying. Like we've flown all over the place. Brad ended up getting his license and he just bought his first airplane, a nice 206.
210.
210. He bought a 210, Cessna 210. I mean, good write-off, right? But I mean, this is the thing, guys. We're not doing this to not make money. You're gonna make money, but you gotta have big goals and big dreams. And I'm telling you that you're in the perfect industry to create those goals and dreams. You're in the perfect industry to do it. But it takes an important key part. Hustle. You gotta hustle every day. And realize you put the hustle in, you put the work in, those blessings are gonna come your way. You gotta hustle.
Yep. I need some flips in Idaho so I can write off the fuel.
I know.
I'll send you a couple.
There we
Oh,
go.
good.
There we go. See, so that's the hook. He just gave you the hook. So hey, and he'll do them with you. If you find a good one, you have the money, he'll do them with you.
Yep. I tell people whether you want all in because you want to be a flipper or you just want to make quick cash because it is quick cash, just a wholesale. I'm down for anything. You got questions? I love talking, investing in general. It's fun to me. And I don't have anything to hide. Like I said, I enjoy it and I want mutually beneficial relationships, both wholesaler, partner, investor, whatever it might be. And there's different ways to do it, whether you get a commission, so to speak, off of bringing a property to me, or you want a partner. There's different ways of getting it. And I always tell people, the bigger the pie is, the bigger the slice everybody gets, right? So if it's a deal where you're making a minimum 15, then you're probably, in the neighborhood, what Sean was talking about, 2 to 5. I try to make 5 nowadays, the lowest end of what I pay out. So I factor that into my numbers so that it's worth it enough for you. It's like, hey, five grand something. And that's 5 grand. It's not 5 minus some sort of fee or anything. That's from my business straight to you. Now, if you're making 50, 80, 100, yeah, you're gonna get, 15, 20 grand for having a conversation. That's really you simplify it all the way down. It's you're building a relationship with somebody, bringing them to the negotiating table, and that's where I come in. Obviously, I'm here to help at any point along the way, but once you get them to the negotiating table, that's what you're getting paid for, and it could be good money depending on the deal. And it's when I close on the property. I know we've done some things differently, but I like to do it when I close. You get it. You're not waiting for me 6 months down the road to, hopefully not that long, but to finish the rehab and get it sold.
Yeah.
So however people want to do it, there's options.
Yeah. Awesome sauce, guys. Thank you so much for today. Any
I'm sorry,
questions?
can I just say one thing? Could you, I haven't looked at the group chat, but is there any way we could get contact info?
It's in the group chat.
Oh, it
Yep.
is. Okay, perfect. This is my
Yeah.
whole life story, what you've described this whole hour. So I'd definitely like to have his contact info.
Yeah, I'll put it in there again. I'll re-put it in there. Oh, he just put his phone number in there too. I'm going to copy and paste it just in case you guys jumped in late.
Perfect. Thank you.
I'll leave this on for a few more minutes, and you guys can grab that contact info. Thank you
Awesome.
so
Thank
much
you.
today, guys. You're welcome. Have a good
All
one.
right. Thanks, Sean. I appreciate it.
Yeah, you're
Thanks,
welcome.
Sean. Good to see you guys.
You as well.
Thank you, Sean. Thank you, Brad. And congratulations, Brad, on your plane.
Thank you.
There you go.
I'll go for a ride. Have a good day.
Sounds good.
Yeah.